good to be alive. Good to be alive. Yeah, it's good to be alive. And we all want to see you thrive. Hang on for the ride. This is Paul Vibes, bringing you a spiritual flow and information that can remedy the soul. A man for the people. Message in a bottle, but he threw it in a podcast. Now it's full throttle. Life is never hollow. But if you ever feel twisted or need to be lifted, yo, my man is gifted.
Hello everybody, Paul Vibes here. Welcome to another episode of the People's Podcast. This is a podcast I'm super excited about. We got Brian Jr. Welcome to the show, guys.
Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We met at the lovely Island Cabo.
Island Cabo, place to be.
Place to be. The island you never want to leave.
A great bar with no alcohol.
No alcohol, just
fantastic.
Cava, Kratom, some good vibes. CBD, we got the Long Island, we got the Cava sticker here. It's a good, what I like, and you bring your son there, and I brought some of my special needs clients and friends. It's such an accepting environment.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Danny loves it down there. It's just the greatest place. Everybody, you walk in the door and it's like, hey Danny, how you doing? Give him the elbow.
You too, you get a lot of love there too.
He does.
Yeah,
well, they have a reputation.
A lot of friends.
Yeah. So when I stop in, sorry to cut out, when I stop in, everyone's like, when they found out that he was my dad and Danny's my brother, like, oh man, you got a kid there, come here every night, they love it. Oh, we love them down here. And I was like, to have a place for Danny to come and feel so welcome and accepted and comfortable, for him, it's not common at all.
Not easy. Oh yeah, this is a new thing.
This is a new thing for him.
Never had a place like that.
Where he was so accepted, so it's like, it's really, really awesome.
And that's an example. It's so cool because that's not just what you hear from people within the special needs community, because everybody wants a place to be accepted.
Yeah.
And we have found that all types of people can walk into Island Cava and just feel like they can talk to anybody.
Absolutely. The best conversations down there. You never know who you're going to meet.
So talk about we should jump right into it, because every time you come in there, I always tell you a story of your brother, of your son, of Danny, and the impact he's made, the poems he has, his amazing story. And I'm like your biggest cheerleader, man. Right. Every time he walks down Cobb, he's like, hey, I'm like, Daddy, come on, Brian, come over here, Daddy, come over here. And
show me your poems. Show me your poems.
And I can't tell if he likes it. I hope you think I'm annoying, but it's always good.
We love it, and Danny loves it. It's good for him to get some recognition like that. He has this talent for poetry, so I like to show it to as many people as I can.
I've had you tell the story a million times of your son and your brother, and like that amazing story of how he was nonverbal. Can you share with us from the very beginning?
Danny's been nonverbal since 18 months back.
How old is he currently right now?
He's 24 now.
He's 24 now, but his whole life, all through school, nonverbal. He was deemed unreachable, unteachable. They thought that he had an IQ very low, and they were teaching him to like a second grade level when he was in his teens, So he was having a hard time, to say the least. So school days were really tough on him, and he'd get enraged by it. Because they would teach it down to him, and he couldn't speak back. He couldn't let them know what he knew, that he really understood everything. And what age was the age where he was slowly working with the what's the terminology?
The RPM?
RPM, yes.
Rapid prompting method.
Rapid prompting method.
Yes. He was 20 years old. He's 24 now. So we read a book. Now this book is very important. Anybody who deals with these kids should be reading this book. It's called Edo and Autism Land.
Was that one of the books you brought? Or you brought
every book like that? No, I lent it to somebody. I don't have it. Edo and Autism
Where's that
Land.
book?
He's a very famous kid now. He was same thing as Danny. When I read that book, I said, this is Danny. This kid is smart, but he was locked in, He went to see Soma in Texas, Austin, Texas. This woman Soma who developed the system.
Right,
And after he went through the system, he started communicating. He went to school with it. They let him use it in the school. He graduated 4th in his high school grade.
Wow.
In his high school senior class.
No,
and meanwhile, he was in the special ed the whole year.
What was his first words when he started?
Danny.
Yes. What was his first words when he started using, his prompting?
He came home from Texas. We went to Texas for 4 days with Soma, and we saw what he could do. He was answering questions. He was giving history, science, and everything, and he was answering the questions. I'm like, this is unbelievable. How does he know this stuff? But he's been listening his whole life, so he knew it. But then nobody really asked him, you know, what's on your mind? So when he came back, we had a really good provider named Jane. So Jane sat him down. She said, Danny, what's on your mind today? And he spells on the board, God is strong in the room. No stopping his love. And that was the first words that ever came out of him.
Amazing. Just when I heard that part, I mean, I still get emotional. I've seen friends of mine get emotional. I mean, how do you feel when going through this live as this is happening in the same house? You know, what was it like for you?
I mean, well, so first of all, like, just to circle back a tiny bit further, the process of watching, Danny go to school every day, come home frustrated, come home angry, get these reports of he's unreachable, unteachable, all that stuff, when you know in your heart deep down that this isn't true, right? Like, we know he's gifted, we know he's smart, we love him so much, and we know that that there's just potential in there, and there's a disconnect, and to hear that, kind of watch him be sort of just labeled and whatever, categorized and put aside, was so incredibly painful. And we felt, I remember as growing up just feeling like what could we, like, we felt helpless, right? So then, and we had tried, there was a lot of other things along the way that we had tried that, there was always improvements, but there was never like that breakthrough we were always praying for, So when I remember gearing up for them to go down to Texas and get ready, and we actually had the gym I had at the time, we did a fundraiser.
The fundraiser was fantastic. CrossFit communities.
Yeah. Tell us, what was the gym called?
It was called CrossFit Long Island. I sold it a few years ago, but that community there stepped up, and we raised money to send me down there and everything. And I remember being challenged for sure, as in, wanted to believe so hard that this was going to be the answer, but like at the same time just bracing, in case it's not, keep the expectations low, and exactly. But then when they came back, we were getting updates that he was doing well, and just starting with kind of the basic stuff. But then when he came back, and I always tell people this, like, we were just in my mind, I was hoping to just be able to see my brother finally just kind of say simple things like, what do you want for dinner? Where do you want to go? If he's upset, what's the matter? Like, just to have that kind of conversation would have been like, we would have been fantastic, right? But then to see him actually open up and say things like he's saying about, like, his connection with God, spirituality, and all this stuff, that he wasn't just like, he's not just a smart kid. He's just on a whole different level than even right. So we were just blown away, and I continue to be blown away every time that.
I still can't believe it.
Still can't believe
it. I sit there and go, what's going on here?
Just to summarize, so he lives 18 years of his life not truly being able to communicate, getting frustrated. I mean, anybody, you see a young kid, if they can't communicate, they get frustrated.
Exactly.
My son's 3.5 right now. And I can tell that he's having trouble with his words, and not to jump to any conclusions or anything like that. But you always have those family members that freak out, right? Every little thing, and I don't believe in that. But people get frustrated with that able to communicate. So he's 18. You find this place. He takes this trip, and you're hearing while he's on this trip that it's working well, right? So how was his life when he comes back from this first trip? Can you share what was the journey like after that, and communicating with him pretty much for the first time? Like, how was that, having conversations with him?
Yeah. Well, his self-esteem was raised to a really good level.
Yeah.
He just felt good about himself. Even when we were
You
down,
probably all felt really
we were
good
down in
too.
Austin, Texas.
We were proud. He was proud.
Yeah,
there's
he was
pride.
walking taller. He felt good.
Right. It wasn't. It was still at the very beginning stages of learning. It was slow and whatever. Like it took time to learn how to use the board and stuff. But like, it didn't matter. It was just, it was proud. Like, everybody was proud, and I think I remember that.
And as it became more and more fluent on the board, it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, for someone who's you guys have been with him his whole journey, how amazing was it for people that would meet him and hear his story? Like, how is this? Because I already know, but just for the people watching this, when you share this story of him, and was in person or at these different events you go to for, he meets up with the other young adults, what is the things that come out of their mouth when they hear the story? Both your lives.
People who don't know the story, yeah. Well, they look at him and they think one thing. And
yeah,
they
assume.
hear the story, they assume, exactly.
Yeah. Did he ever, when this started happening, was he ever to comment on things that maybe happened in his life that he never was able to communicate during parts that he wanted to say something? Because that could be really deep. Let's say
he did talk about school, but like they were talking about me in school today, like I'm not there.
Oh, see,
You know,
that's
so
what I
that was-
mean.
He felt terrible.
Or things that he always wanted to say, but now only recently had the power.
Sometimes the teachers or the therapists would be talking about it when he's sitting right there, you know.
Yeah.
That makes you feel something.
Right, and that goes back to the first point we were saying about how frustrating it must be to be labeled and discarded, and then but at the same time hear people talking about you as if you don't understand when you do, but you can't express it, and how frustrating, just to think for even just a minute how frustrating that would be, no less than 20 years or so, and it's I think it was just gratifying to know that we knew all along that he had this in him, and it was finally coming out. And
he always said he has it in his eyes. You can tell he's thinking. He's thinking.
How do you explain? I know we talked about briefly, just for people. I know I had Nancy on. She talks a little bit about it, and I'm gonna link to his kind of relates. I like to relate, so if someone watches one podcast, then they can link to the one with your son. So I'm gonna link that one because she also talks a lot about it. But how do you describe this way of communicating?
How do I describe it?
Yeah, like what is it? How does it work?
I can show you the book.
They never heard of it.
Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, I'll show you the book. I got it with me.
Yeah, you want me to give a little kind of basics? I'll give you a little basics.
Yeah, while he gets it out.
So you want to?
Alright, this is the boy. And Soma developed this system. She took her son Tito out of school over in India and said, I'm going to teach this kid, because they gave up on him. And she just, every place she went, she would point to something. She'd tell him what it is, this is that, this is this. And she taught him everything. And then since then, Tito wrote 5 books. The kid's like unbelievably smart. Great.
And show it
So
in
just
using
read
this
a
book,
book,
right?
use
So
the
this
book.
is what it looks like.
Very simple.
Yeah.
Very simple. And when I sometimes make the mistake, and I hope I always say device, electronic, a lot of individual device, but this is what your son
People say,
needs.
electronics, but it's not electronics.
Yeah,
It's just
right.
a laminated letterboard.
So he'll literally just point to it, and then they'll help write the words, right?
Right. He'll just go like this.
Literally spells it out
He'll
little by
spell it
little.
out like that, and you write it down as he goes along. And it
Mm.
goes out. There's a whole progression. You start with just 2 paper choices, and it touches one when they first starting this system.
Like probably a picture or
a stencil
something.
with like 1/3 of the alphabet, and they put pencils through the letters, depending on where you are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do they have devices where he could do that and then it reads it?
That's what I want. Yeah, you could spell it out.
So then actually, so if
And it
you
will
spell
read,
it, then
right.
the device would just read
Absolutely.
Oh, like
fast
say
food or
Yeah.
food or
Oh
hungry.
yeah, that's what a lot of
I
kids are doing. They're going to college with this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of. I have another book here.
Yeah, I think
These
it's-
around me. It's called.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, some books. So some
Yeah,
books.
this
That
book.
you
I got books.
So tell us about this book.
Now this book is written by kids that communicate differently than us. They do RPM. Some facilitate the communication, but mostly RPM in this book. And they're going to college. They businesses that they're forming. They're doing all kinds of amazing. This book is unbelievable.
And I just want to
They're
add,
artists.
I think I've shared with you that, and I think one of the reasons I have a really deep connection with you and your son and your family is, I think I mentioned I grew up with a learning disability. I have an individual education plan. I have a big relationship and connection with the special needs community because I was choked by the umbilical cord, and I could have been someone that would need this device.
I was like scared.
It happened to one of your daughters. That affected my confidence, affected the way I communicate. I was a little delayed in different learning stuff, and even to this day, I serve accommodations in college. At Delphi, I get notes and extra time, and now that everything's online,
That's what you needed. It works.
it works. But for me, just real quick, the shift was during this whole time with my confidence wasn't communication with that. It was actually volunteer work. I realized when you help other people, you help yourself. And it doesn't matter what your IQ score is, it doesn't matter what much money you have, your sexuality. We as individuals, not just me, but we as individuals can make an impact in people's lives despite our challenges. And that moment I started really making shifts spiritually, physically, mentally, exercising more. The boys that once bullied me became friends, and I realized that they were who they were because of their pain. And it led me to obviously sit here and do this with you guys because I just love connecting with people, and I realize there's a story behind everybody.
Right. Which is cool about this book is it's a collection of stories and a collection of passages, right? And so many different authors, and they're all
Danny has like 4 friends in this book.
Yeah. So there's like, it's cool because it shows that these aren't singular outlier cases.
Yes.
That, you know,
Right.
once in a while some of these kids can learn how to do this. It's like it's becoming incredibly common, and the things that they're saying are.
And the system has to get into the school districts.
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
Mhm.
And I think just being more accepting, understanding that people are going to learn differently. The way I learned to be different, the way you learned, and the way Danny learned to be different. I mean, I remember when I was going to school, there was a point where they almost were going to throw me into a classroom of individuals that would spend their whole day in class. There's nothing wrong with that, but they weren't looking at me as an individual.
Right.
They're like, oh, you have a learning challenge, we want to throw you in. And a lot of people, they almost threw me in with, I work with, and that's nothing wrong. It says nothing, I don't think there's anything less of them. But the point is that you need to look at everybody as individuals.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So
And the whole learning environment is tough in the schools. you
Oh
know.
yeah, it'd be very tough.
Even just the lights.
How the lights
the
here?
fluorescent
The lights good?
No, the fluorescent lights like flicker and it messes the kids up. And they shouldn't have them in the schools. You know,
Definitely weren't.
Temple Grandin talked about that years ago, but all the schools still have them.
Still have
It's like ridiculous.
Speaking of poems, you haven't shared. Eddie, can we share one?
Sure.
I think it's time for a poem. Like it's
Yeah.
like a commercial break, but with poems.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Because and trust me, you're not gonna. Even if we did 5 poems, it wouldn't be enough because there's so many great poems that Danny has.
I'll see what I got.
Now, just people don't know. If you ever want to see more of these poems, just find Brian and Danny at Alan Cobb. He's always got a stack of the poems in his back pocket.
Here we go. You want something that one of his first poems that he wrote?
Anyone?
Yeah,
this is
why
the
don't we
first-
start with one of the earlier ones?
Yeah, the earlier ones, so you can see how he
just to
developed.
tell the audience too. So, like I kind of alluded to, but it wasn't like he went and learned this thing and bam, he now could had I wouldn't say fluency, but it's just like learning anything else. It was
Gradually,
slower and a little
Right.
clunkier at first, and now he's gotten better and better and better.
Yeah,
So I think
and
it's- I
he'll
think-
still get better too.
Yes,
He
he will.
has to learn to use devices and all that.
But I think it's whenever I tell people about it, I think it's cool to show them some of the first ones first because they'll be short, and it may have taken him. Some of these took a whole session to write
It would
these
take
short
half an hour
poems.
to write this little
But
poem.
now he can have like much
Amazing.
faster conversations. But I just think it's cool to start at the beginning.
Please.
This is
Understand
the absolute first one he ever wrote.
Yeah, so we have to keep in mind that these are literally after 20 years of being trapped. These are now the first words that he's been able to share with the world. So I think it's really special.
Amazing. I appreciate you sharing.
This is
some
the number
pockets.
one. The gallant gulls squawk. My ears adjust to nature. I feel the breeze in my hair telling me to be free. Sun is the color of sand. So I went down. Wow, this is fantastic, Danny. So this one here addresses the synesthesia. It's a blending of the senses that the kids have.
So
Yeah.
are you familiar with that?
Explain to the.
So synesthesia is when, like my dad mentioned, it's kind of a blending of the senses, and children, a lot of children and adults, obviously with autism, experience this, and it means things like they sort of are able to see colors and like sight and sound and smell and the sensory inputs from all those kind of blend. And I know that's like hard to imagine, but it becomes very much. I mean, in some ways, it can be a lot.
Like a
Overwhelming.
sound can be painful.
Yes, right. It can be
Yeah.
overload. It can be painful. It's very uncomfortable. And this is many times when we see them sort of, they seem you can see some discomfort a lot of times.
You don't know what it is.
We don't know what it
It's
is,
something
but
in their environment
yeah, it's
that's
between
When
the
everything can seem fine to you and I,
right,
but either
yeah.
a sound or the image or the smell
Or
could be
smell,
triggering
yeah,
something
smells
else.
right.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. So
So this one is
just lean into this.
Okay.
just a little bit.
all the gold kites swim in the dancing water. The breeze makes diamonds. Kite and stone mix in an array of sound. To my eyes, they are one and the same.
Wow.
So this is, I think,
Yeah, we were at
we were
all
like,
these
we
things, yeah.
were like, like I said, we were hoping to be able to just have some kind of like, a little basic communication, and all of a sudden
And
he's
it's all
writing
deep
these
stuff.
deep
Yeah.
stuff, and we're like, oh my
And we
god.
were at the RPM session, and the house was on the water, and he was telling me you could hear the water outside from inside, because they have super senses too.
When is he gonna be on Soul Sunday with Oprah or something like that?
This is something I want to give you later about the insiders.
When he's been sharing all this stuff,
Yeah.
it wasn't like he was reading a bunch of spiritual books. It wasn't like he was hanging around with spiritual
Right,
mentors, right? So
exactly.
how do you think? And I think we know, but just in putting into words, how do you describe? Because it's not like you guys super religious family or
Right.
How did
We
this
go
happen?
to church and we pray before
Yeah.
meals and all, but we don't without preachers and things like
Yeah.
that.
Right.
He seems to have.
But this shows you that there's something deep going on.
Yeah.
Because
I think I mean, like my father said, it's it's a big part of our lives, our faith and our beliefs, but it's not like necessarily everyday conversation, right? And so for the fact that he's able to have these thoughts, I was always kind of wondering the same thing, but I really just think that he sees the world from a different perspective than we do, and he's able to kind of connect to that next realm and really just I know that might sound wild, but if you hear some more of these
things that we never taught him.
That he
some of the
knows.
things
well,
that
let's
he
think about
practiced,
this because I've even experienced in people I've worked with is we are so overwhelmed by the hustle and bustle, the 9 to 5, the running around, that when you do focus in the other senses and other parts of your brain, things are happening. You're noticing things that other people aren't always noticing. You're feeling things that people aren't always feeling. You're almost aware. You're almost seeing things in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's from my experience, what I've seen.
Definitely.
I agree.
Special needs.
And with the pandemic, everybody's starting to think more. Instead of
Yes.
out working all the time, they say,
Wow.
what should I do with my life? Maybe I'll do something different.
Can I?
But this is something.
You want to share
about,
that one?
This is about the pandemic.
Please.
Now he was working with Nancy, and Nancy said, "Danny, I want you to write. See if I can get some writing out of you," because he was giving him a little bit of a hard time. So she said, "Start this first sentence with the word truth, and the next one with the word trust, and then truth and trust, and write it. See if you can write a poem." So we were hoping for 2 or 3 lines. He was in a mood that day sometimes. But this is what he wrote about the pandemic. Truth, raw to the touch. Trust, things you might not see. Truth, voicing, purifying the source. Trust your prayers will be answered. Truth, sings praises to us in the kind, tough world. Trust working minds, more us than me. Truth, makes autistics use their minds to speak. Trust, source vindicated to move forward. Truth in my words, hurry to my insights. Trusting more than knowing, rushing to my clarity, training, moving, struggling to see the light.
Wow.
Yeah, I think during the timing of that one, I remember now as you're seeing again, and I was like, I remember when I read that when he came home, I was like, I needed to hear that. Trust.
I think a lot of people out there.
Remember, this was this was kind of when they first really started, like, all right, this is going to be a real thing, this whole COVID, this is obviously there's...
And the predictions were really dire back then too, it was like, oh my God, what's going to happen?
We didn't realize that a lot of the information was inaccurate, but everybody was in a state of scare. Everyone was scared. Everyone had a lot of fear and was scared, and the words just seeing trust, and truth, and I was like, damn, I need to hear that right now.
And I want to ask you guys, because speaking of that poem, what have you learned, not just by his poems, but how he's learned to overcome what he's dealing with, and he's learning how to communicate and seeing the journey? Like, how do you describe to people who don't have a child with special needs or that doesn't understand this very deep spiritual stuff? Like, when people look at your story, they probably get inspired, right?
Yeah. But
But how do you put into words the journey that you guys have been on with that? I know it's a big question.
Sure, yeah. Well, other people who are in this journey, they know the deal,
They know the deal.
It's 24/7,
Yeah, I mean, you're just to give example. You're up, you're up until however late he's up. You're up.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Island Kava, if
All night
you're up till
long.
12, 2, 3, but then when you're home, you're still up till he's up, right?
Oh,
So
sure.
it's a whole life thing.
Yeah. 'Cause every minute you're worrying about them, He's a great kid.
What was the question again?
Just how has having a brother like this in this journey impacted you personally? Like, how do you put into words the whole experience? I know it's a big question.
Yeah.
Definitely improves it. I mean, a whole family.
Yeah.
They brought you guys together. Well, what has it done for you guys? I think otherwise it wouldn't have been if it wasn't for that.
I think, for one of the first things we all had to understand, and it's funny, I actually was doing some reflecting on this recently, so I had some fresh thoughts in my mind.
Perfect time.
I think, I was still young, I was around 12 years old when, he was, the injury happened and everything. And, it was just confusing and scary. We didn't know what. All of a sudden we went from just like a very normal, perfect, everything in my lives was perfect and normal until all of a sudden, this is going to be different. Like, life is going to be different. And
It changes the whole dynamic.
changes the dynamic. I think we really learned immediately. We sacrifice. We all understood that things were going to be different. There's going to be sacrifices that need to be made, and a lot of teamwork and working together because of the amount of time. Again, I didn't quite realize this all the time as a kid, but we kind of fell into
You
this.
said happened at what age? So
He was,
that
you know,
when
he
born?
was 2.
That's
No.
when you realized. Okay.
No. Well, he was developing typically until about really said 18 months to 2.
Okay.
So and I'm 10 years older, so I was 11, 12
So you knew
years old.
something was going on.
So then when all of a sudden things started to change and we're like something's not right here, like what's going on? And I remember it was a scary time. And then when we started, it kind of became a reality that things are going to be different around here. And I think I'm proud of my sisters and myself and everybody in the family because we just this is what it's going to be, and we just like I said, we all had to kind of make some sacrifices and work together. And one of the if you don't mind me sharing,
Please, absolutely.
Over the weekend, like I mentioned, I was thinking about it, and as there's no way to avoid the feelings of that. How do I say it? But like the perception of it is that something bad has this is not a good thing, right? It's a negative thing to our family and our life, and
as other people say I'm sorry for you.
Right. And you just automatically take that perspective because things are different, and he's in pain. He's trapped and he's suffering, physical pain, mental pain. All these the things that are happening in school. You always felt for his suffering, but and you start to automatically think like, what did we do to deserve this? You know what I mean? Stuff like
why
that.
Me? Why?
Why us? We were such a we're a good family, do everything right, and like, why does this happen to us? And I literally was really just thinking about this recently, and what I realized is that I really believe that Danny, and in exactly how he is actually a blessing to us because of what we're learning now and what we're understanding from him, and as much as sacrifice has been made and hardship and all that stuff, but like to be living with someone who's so just unique and intelligent and just inspiring and caring and we
things
learned.
He writes about his nieces and when you got married, the toast he made, and Kellyanne, he made a toast. He wrote a toast for them.
And he's connected to the divine in a way that none of us are, and we're able to learn. We're able to really be reassured through him.
Wow.
I know he's done a lot for my faith as far as being just reassured that that we're all here for everything's exactly how it's supposed to be.
It reminds me of this spiritual. I appreciate you saying that. It's saying you see God and the divine in everything. You, me, not just people who are atypical or special needs. You could find God in everybody.
Right.
Every living, this tree, the nature, the grass, person.
Very close to nature.
And there's some cultures, and I don't want to speak as an expert in the subject. I don't know. You gotta look it up. But I remember hearing in cultures and religions, people with special needs are looked up as closer to divine, and by looking at these poems, I would say that's pretty accurate.
Right. And especially because, like we said, a lot of these books that these other kids are writing very, very similar stuff, and they're talking about just they're just on really what it is that they're on a different wavelength. They're just on we're on a different kind of frequency,
they're all having
vibration.
podcasts now. They're writing books.
Well, think about this. I mean, there's plenty of things we could have talked about besides, but Danny's story has brought people, me here, and inspires the hell out of me. I mean, every time you walk in, Danny walks in, the story is good. The story is real, and it reminds us that to not. For me, it reminds me of so many different things. It makes me think about things in so many deep ways. But to me, it just makes you realize there's so many unique people with so many gifts.
Right.
I mean, if you look at his gifts, so people could look at my learning disability. I could look at it and feel sorry for myself and feel bad, right? There was a time when I did, and even though I had all the love in the world from my family, you start to feel bad for yourself. And it seems like you guys around Danny you empower him, you support him.
We try to help him out, because they get depressed too, just like anybody else,
Especially if you
they
could have
see the light
communicated.
go by and they can't get on,
Yes.
get on board and all.
Amazing. So just to share with people, if someone, I also want to give shout out if people with special needs or people in the community, because a big community of followers and people from my past in the organization world and the not-for-profit world with special needs. If people are watching this and want to learn more about this type of communication, they probably heard all about it. But just in case they haven't, is there any? Yeah. What do you want to share?
If you want to Google Soma and Tito. Tito's the son of.
And we'll link it all in the description.
Soma's SOMA. and Tito's her son.
Perfect.
And then the RPM stands for Rapid Prompting Method.
They travel around the world and they teach it to people.
And just so people know, if you look in the description of the video, I'll include all the links into you
Oh,
guys.
excellent.
And I want to ask.
Yeah, okay. I was
What
gonna
was
say you could maybe show a clip of Danny doing RPM.
Yeah, well,
We
that's
have
what,
plenty
yeah.
of clips like
And you're gonna
that.
see us on a hike, so you're
Yeah,
gonna see us go hiking
see
too.
Danny at the gym.
Yeah.
We got the gym.
I want to ask what you guys want, and just as we start to close, what would you say to people who may not have a son or daughter with special needs, or may not be someone with special needs, but that want to be more open and learn more about this community? And I also want to ask you a question: is like, if someone's watching this who has a son and daughter, and they think that they might have some challenges with communication, they're very, as you know, a lot of parents in today's world get very anxious and worried.
Right, sure. They work
One thing
right
happens
away,
and they start
right.
assuming the worst.
Oh, sure.
I think I have some family members like that. I know they mean well,
Mm-hmm.
but what is your advice to parents who are having these concerns at a young age with their children?
Or try to find what they like to do and pursue that. I would say.
Focus on their strengths.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
Right, and I think, and also I think it comes back to faith and trust again, right? Like that, even if they don't, it turns out that maybe they aren't going to have this, typical path that all the other, kids have. That we use words like normal,
Or
and stuff
typical,
like that,
whatever,
normal.
yeah.
We use those words, but we can't let that be the label that we can't project, that they're abnormal, they're different, they're atypical. Like I think acceptance and for our own kids and others. Like, I think the first part of the question was how, just kind of, I don't know what you said exactly, but basically like the answer I had in my mind was to, when we see kids and
Right.
adults, I'm saying kids, but kids
Right.
and adults with these issues, we have to accept them and believe in them,
Right,
that they're more than
Just
they
to-
might meet the eye.
Yes.
Just because they don't know how to
Someone's
communicate.
main thing is presume competence.
Yes,
Yes.
that's a great way. Yes.
Because imagine,
Talk to them like I'm talking
yes,
to you.
that's the way you
Don't
do
talk
it.
down.
And I've been there, and I've done
Don't
that.
be afraid to talk to them.
Yes.
Sometimes they ignore you.
It might seem a little, it's different. Maybe they don't shake hands. Maybe they turn their head away. Maybe they don't, whatever the typical tendencies are for them. They're all very different. But don't assume that means lack of intelligence. Don't assume that means they don't know what you're saying.
Or they
Don't
don't
assume-
like you
Or they don't
or
like
whatever.
you. Or right, exactly. And that they don't understand, because it's very painful from what we understand from what they're sharing.
Right.
I can only imagine it's very painful to be around people who don't think you understand and aren't intelligent.
Or accepting.
And accepting.
Right,
They talk about you like you're not there.
Yeah, Danny called it his tortured existence. That's what
Oh,
he
wow.
described it.
Right, and so that's why, especially if you work in the schools, especially if you work in the
Absolutely,
special needs
that's-
programs, and just believe.
Yeah, anybody out there who's in the schools, they have to read Ito and Autism Land is the book.
Mm.
It's the book. He's changing the world. He has a website now.
We'll link it in the description.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the name of it.
Just
Communication Now.
we'll link it. We'll link it in the video. You let me know.
Yeah,
Do you want to share another poem?
sure. You want to read
Close
this
in a
one?
poem. You want to read
This
it?
is one. Yeah, this might maybe heaven that he's talking about. You want to read King's Land?
Okay.
It's a long one. You sure you got it?
Oh, it's
Or
4
you want to
pages?
read,
Yeah,
you
I
want to
can
read
read
about
it.
the girl who lives underwater?
I hear you.
I can do it.
Yeah.
I can do it. I may have trouble with some of the words. 'cause-
This is yeah. Okay.
Okay, ready? The topic is going to be King's Land. Heals all wounds in the palace if you stay there. It always sings in the dawn when the sun rises and glows at night, bathed in golden light. Rare onyx and sapphire encrust the gates. No one understands the rarity of the stones, not even the understaffed palace. Goes to show you, no one studies these days. The bare palace is swimming in treasures of old. Needs more decorating, you say? Think again. Sunshine bounces off its glistening walls. That's why no pictures hang. Lost gold in the ceiling. Rooms of white silver shine in the starlight. The angels sing in the roofs. Your gallery of art is on the second floor. Red and white tulips adorn the archway to the museum. Some kings stay the night, some a lifetime. That's God's decision. Wow.
I love that one.
Yeah,
You read that good.
Yeah, it's
Thank
good.
you.
I read that good.
Thank you. I rehearsed a few times. No, I mean, this might be just me, but when I read some of his poems, we live in a world where we think everything needs to be understood, taken apart, dissected. We need to understand this equals that. Everybody that reads this might feel something different.
Exactly.
When I read this, it wasn't so much I thought about something, and more of I felt something. And to me, like just the last line, I just want to share, and everyone's interpretation might be different. But when he says, some kings stay the night, some a lifetime, that's God's decision. Often in life, so much things aren't our decision. How long we stay on this planet, what we do, what we feel, situations, circumstances, that it's not up to us. And that's probably better that way, right?
I like that.
Wow.
Interpretation, yeah. And sometimes you read it one day and you read it another day and you get a different feeling.
And this is a good topic, I think, to close on, interpretation. You know, I get emotional just thinking about what I'm about to say, but this whole thing's emotional. This idea of interpretation, right? Many people are gonna look at your guys' story, look at my story, look at challenges that happen in your life and my life, and feel sorry. Oh my God, it's so terrible.
Right.
But oftentimes it's having a son like you happen. The challenge is Danny. Danny wouldn't be who he is without his challenges.
We'd all be so different.
Would we be?
We
We may not even been that.
Yeah. I would have never been a workaholic, maybe, you know.
Some of you still
Yeah.
are probably used to be. I don't know. But
Yeah, that's what happens. You know, you get caught up in the machine and
Yes.
you know, make more money, bigger house, bigger.
But what
this,
it do?
whatever.
It shifted
Yeah,
the way.
totally.
And you have a mad. We always talk about people watching this who know you already, probably already know. But something about your family, man. I don't know. Hearing the stories of people who haven't met you. You guys have this
miracle that
energy.
happened recently.
Yes, that's a whole other
Yeah.
podcast. Stay tuned. But the point that I want to say is, and I want to end in this point you all can touch on, is we often label things or we make assumptions. You know, things aren't always the way that we see them, right? Or, you know, people might look at your life and my life and think one thing.
Right, you jump to conclusions.
And look at this situation with you guys in your life and Danny and how it's impacted. You wouldn't be who you are.
Absolutely.
And that's and the point I was saying earlier about how I think I finally realizing at 34 years old that this was all a blessing, not a negative.
It was all meant to be.
It was all meant to be. It's moved us all forward as people. It's moved us into better people, better places. With all the hardships that have come with it, yes, not to downplay the work.
Oh yeah.
But you know, we all see this. My whole family sees this world differently, and I think from a better perspective because of him.
Wow.
And you know, not to
His
say that
priorities.
it happened, right? Obviously, because
Right.
for his pain and everything, but you know, I trust that this was what was meant to be, and that we are using it for growth and evolution.
And that's just what you have to
ourselves.
make each day, right? Because each day is a new challenge with Danny in your own personal life. You have a
It's hard to
family.
make any kind of long-term plans, you know. So it's
Just
one
come
day-
here.
It's
I
one day
had
at a
to
time.
bribe these guys to come
It's not
over.
easy. I'm telling you.
But you know,
It's not
this,
easy.
this is saying that as we close up, this is saying that it's the cracks that allow the light to come in.
Yes.
Often in times, right? Because as much as the suffering and challenges have been hard in all of our lives, it's only through those challenges when things are going wonderful and amazing, you don't learn as much as when things are hard. You know, and I like this when I see Danny in the Kava bar. He always seems so happy, but I also acknowledge that there's a lot of pain that led to that.
Yeah. That's a recent thing, you know. He could never do that 2 years ago, even, you know.
Wow.
He had a rough time. He couldn't take him out anywhere, so he had no social life.
Yeah.
But
Now he's a big social life.
yeah, he's a good
I wanna-
kid.
I wanna-
He really appreciates it down there.
Okay, well, we appreciate you
Everybody's
guys.
so nice.
I want to offer you guys, as we close up, just if there's anything that you feel like you want to share, let out, that you weren't able to say already. And I just want to also say before we close up that if you want to see more from these two people and Danny and hearing his story or questions that you want us to talk about next time, definitely reach out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So, is there anything you want to share? You go first.
Talk about the gym.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
I can talk about
No,
that.
we'll quickly plug.
Oh, please, yeah.
Yeah.
So please.
Well, we have a gym. CrossFit was so good. The community is awesome. So
Please.
we were in touch with a couple of the people who own gyms, and they let us use it for our group. So we had like 25 kids down there, 23 boys, 2 girls. That's tough on the kids, the boys these days.
I know, right?
But we had a lot of fun. But the community was fantastic. So we're hoping to do that again once this pandemic.
Heck yeah, and I would love to also promote it as well.
Hopefully to get our own place. You know, that would be the ideal situation. So we're forming a nonprofit, and we're going to go ahead and do that.
Well, you know you got my support. I wanted to say.
Yeah, and it's called Spectrum Strength. So it's specifically designed for really more actually adults, but eventually we'll have to have children and adults, but most of them out of school. Adults on the spectrum, obviously, and what's beautiful about it is there's really any ability levels are open and accepted, and like my dad mentioned, we are working on finding a location. We're just kind of beginning the process of moving in that direction for our own location, so we don't have to kind of we've been really lucky to have cooperating gyms to work with. We're working on kind of taking it to the next level so we can offer more.
Man, you guys picked the best time to find gyms.
Yeah, so we want to put that out into the world and let people know.
But if you go to the website, spectrumstrength321.com,
Yep.
so you can see, we have a good video on there.
So if anybody has a connection to gyms or sees a gym on sale, right, or a good,
or just knows of a spot or anything, whatever. It's just good to let the world know that's what we're working on
Put that
creating
in the universe.
And that these kids are capable of doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
They're doing some amazing things,
And they need that physical. They have very minimal opportunities in most cases for physical activity. Most of the things they do are very sedentary, and the brain,
brain-body connection,
exactly.
spiritual connection.
And
As
it's
you know.
the same thing as in school. They were taught down, lower level than they were capable.
Oh, I
and the
even
same thing
myself,
with gym classes at the school. They weren't doing it.
No,
not doing enough at all.
Right.
They've done that a lot.
That's it's a really cool project, and actually my dad's the main man on that, and it's something that I'm really proud to watch grow. And he puts a lot of hard work in for these kids.
Well, I hope you guys know you got my support and I can help out.
Awesome.
From the podcast there, promote you on my newsletters.
Right.
I have, as you know, a big community reach out to the organization I'm on the board of.
It's
And I have
always
already
good
think
network.
my ideas, I don't mention the camera because I want to reach out to them and connect you, but I have a lot of different connections with people who own gyms and also relate to the special needs community.
That's fantastic.
I think one last shout out to
Please.
Island Cava again too.
Island Cava.
These guys, they go down there way past my bedtime. They're usually just leaving when I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
So I don't get to go down as often. But I mean, for Danny to have a place where he can go every day and feel comfortable and welcome, and accepted it means more than
More than
a lot of
gold, man.
listeners
More than
might
gold, that's for
realize.
sure. Yeah.
And we gotta give some love to your dad
Yeah,
because
look,
I know
yeah.
this guy. I get emotional. I look at him like he's like,
Yeah.
not just like a father, but like a brother. It's
Yeah.
weird. I don't know, but you
Yeah,
don't mind
yeah.
sharing. There's a
Absolutely,
guy.
I'm glad you said that. Because
And the mom,
I think
right?
it's
Don't forget-
important. Oh yes. So
The whole family.
yes.
Get the list out. Get the list out.
My wife.
First of all, yeah, so for Spectrum Strength, he's kind of the front man. Like I said, my mom is big on the back end. My wife and I also help it. They are, the lead on that project. And yes, sorry mom, we're not trying to.
You should come on. Listen, mom.
She should be there, but yeah,
She
we
should
do it.
If we did another show with her on
Yeah.
some of the details on these things,
Please.
it should be she's lights out with all this stuff. But yeah, but like you mentioned, when I go to Island Cava and I get, oh, Brian's your dad, he's the greatest guy, he's so good, I love this guy, so nice, and it's, I'm very proud.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
You always say, he's such a proud dad, he's always bragging, and I know that he's always like talking about.
He's always talking well about
not
you.
bragging, but like,
Yeah.
talking about how proud he is
I
of
love
the
my
kids.
kids, everybody does that.
Right, but we're also proud of him,
Yeah.
him too, and
Thanks.
Listen, I'm not even his son, and I'm so lucky to have him in my life as a friend.
So is
Hey,
everyone.
hey.
So thank you.
That's really good stuff. So I appreciate having us on. This is
Anytime, and anything
All
we
over
can
to
support
you.
your endeavors. Brian, it's up
Okay.
to you, man. You can share whatever you want to say in closing. People
Can I give
watching.
one more poem?
Yes,
This
please.
is Danny's masterpiece. He calls it his masterpiece.
So
I think this hits.
Yes, we'll close with
It's
this
like the greatest
poem,
thing.
and then please share.
Okay. Once there was a girl whose voice underwater sounded like chimes. Above water she couldn't speak. Very distraught at knowing she had a beauty no one knew about, she tried to invite others underwater so they could hear her. No one understood, and she felt hopeless that no one would ever know how different she was. She decided to give up and go on with a lonely beauty, accepting that no one might ever appreciate her. Then one day she realized time had dissolved the water and she was still singing. Suddenly it was apparent. The silent girl was so profoundly special, and she didn't need anyone's approval.
Wow.
That last line, I was crying when I wrote that.
That's the
Wow.
masterpiece.
I love it.
That is my favorite one. That's the one that gets everybody too.
Dang.
That's great.
And they're gonna people watching this. You're gonna see more videos. We're gonna go for a hike soon, and we're gonna put some
Mhm.
poems. It'll take some time to get it out there, but there's such beauty and there's something about these poems, and you guys already know, but when people hear these poems, I've shown them and bragged, it takes people to a different dimension in a way.
Right.
And that's cool, and it might be different for everybody.
That's right.
Like this one, to
I
me,
love this one.
I love this one. What I get at it is not needing approval,
Right.
to be happy, to be who you are, and to imagine this with Danny. You know, he's talking about this. To me, it looks like, you know, that realization of like he doesn't need anyone's
Right.
approval.
He tried for years to get people to understand him, and they couldn't.
And now these kids are profoundly special, whether they get the approval or not. They are.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you see anybody out there, they're in a wheelchair, maybe they're not talking, or they're acting strange, or they have mannerisms and tics and things.
Yeah.
Don't think that they don't have intelligence, because
Or even a physical disability, their color of their skin, or their sexuality. And
Right.
I think on that note of this acceptance and love and loving yourself and other people without judging.
exactly.
Love without unconditional love. To love people without needing them to check off certain boxes in your mind.
Sure.
So
I agree.
bring it in.
Thanks, brother.
Bring it in.
Good
Bring a
job.
hug in to you guys.
That's great. Thank you so much.
We send some
Thanks.
peace to the cameras and to the
All right.
people watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I always say this, but this is truly I'm probably so excited to release this podcast. People have been telling me to get them on for so long now. People
Yeah, we've
who
been talking about it for a while.
people who haven't even met him in person, but I have bragged about his story. Hopefully got it all right in the details, but people have been like, oh, you're having them on, the people you always talk about with his son and all this, and I'm super excited. So
We have to
thanks
get
for coming
Danny
on.
here.
Danny,
Yeah.
thanks guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to be alive, and we all want to see you thrive. Hang on for the ride. This is Paul Vibes, bringing you a spiritual flow and information that can remedy the soul. A man for the people, message in a bottle.